we start by having a little bit of an introduction about yourself. So, if you could just introduce, and then we're going to be looking at some questions and answers, and that's about it, right? So, we'll begin with the interview first, and yeah, you can start by introducing yourself.
Hi, good morning, everyone. I'm Sherwin Mabulo. Thank you for actually contacting me. I'm quite surprised that you wanted to interview a teacher, not really a physicist. I'm a senior high school teacher in my school. I've been teaching for almost 4 years. I'm a physics major as well, so I've been teaching, physics, different physical sciences subjects. Currently, I'm also taking my master's in distance education since I think that's relevant right now with the current situation that we are in. Learning at a distance is really essential, and there are, I think, a lot of things that needs to be addressed in learning at a distance. Yeah, that's it for me.
Great, great. So, as you mentioned, you're coming from the physics department and the background. So, can you tell me what are you researching on currently, and what are you exploring in the physics, stream in very simple terms, so our viewers can understand?
So since I've mentioned that I'm more of in the academic side of things rather than in the laboratory in doing pure sciences, I'm more interested in how different methodologies and strategies can improve the level of interest, and as well as making things easier to for students to understand physics in general, because physics is perceived as a very difficult subject. For students who really hate physics, what are the things that we can do? What are different tools that we can really show them to make things easier for them to understand. And as well as, given the recent technological advancement, teachers create a more interactive classroom. So, even without the presence of the laboratory equipment, or laboratory in general, because in our country, there is a lack of resources and funding as well. So teachers are more creative in a way that they try to look for other ways to teach a subject without the presence of this equipment that we're talking about. So using series of simulations or showing videos to engage students, but the ultimate goal is, of course, engaging students and making learning physics fun. But if we're going to look into the research that I'm really interested in, it's basically I have two focus. The first one, as I've mentioned, methods and strategies that would help students understand physics better. What are the main causes of the phobia in physics? Is it math? Is it English? Is it science? Or a combination of these three? Because in the Philippines, we actually teach physics and sciences subjects in English, but in some countries, like Japan, they actually use their native language, right? So is that a factor? That's why uh, you know physics is perceived to be difficult, or is it just purely math, or is it a combination of these three? And then the second one, since I'm taking my masters, learning physics at a distance. Though this has been already done in different countries, it's still different when you try to contextualize physics in the Philippine setting. Because of in reality, it's difficult to have learning at a distance if you don't have your laptops, you don't have a fast internet connection. So how do we do this? How do we still make learning fun for them at a distance? So that's it.
Well, very well explained. So that brings me on to my next question. When did you decide to pursue physics? And what motivated you, whether was it at school or university, to take on the pursuit of knowledge in the physics department?
To be honest, at first I didn't really want to be a teacher, so that's the first one, and I didn't really want to take physics as a major. I came from a family of teachers, so I think that's the main reason why I got here. The second reason is that I didn't want to choose pure math as a major, and I didn't want to to look into numbers only, and I was more leaning towards chemistry. But the school that I was in, there wasn't an offering of pure chemistry. It was biochem, which was not my forte for that matter, because there's biology. So and then of course I think I chose physics number one for convenience, because there were only a few people who were majoring this. So only a few people um, who really took the challenge to take this. So it was nice to know that these are good friends of mine as well. Um, At the same time, it's a personal challenge, siguro, for me, since it's a pretty intense major and finishing this degree would give me a sense of accomplishment, you know? And then people would often say that, wow, you finished a degree in physics, or something like that. It's more of a personal challenge and accomplishment for me. In terms of motivation, I think, trying to make a world a better place, although that's altruistic of me to think of that. Um, yeah, I think that's the simple motivation that I'm doing, that I have
Okay,
right now.
that's certainly great. I mean, it's now motivating me to pursue physics. So that brings on to my next question. Since you said you're a teacher and you're researching, so what would you say has shaped you as an academician, and how would you say that the process has been?
If we're really going into who or what shaped me as academician or a teacher right now, I think it's my
Right.
parents, specifically my mother. She was a previous she's a retired teacher. I mean, I would often see her being acknowledged by students, which goes to show how she made an impact into their lives, as well as I think the experiences that I had throughout my teaching career. Different students coming from different background, you learn from them, not only that they're learning from you, but you learn from them in a personal manner. And yeah, I think these people and their experiences are really what made me who am I right now.
That's an amazing answer. Now that you've made it into the field, right, as an academician, and this is where you've reached. So, do you think this is exactly how you envisioned it would be, or is it a little different from what you thought?
I think I can't really say that I've made it now because I'm still trying to pursue things. If we're trying to look into how different is it, it's quite different teaching physics rather than learning it. You're already in the opposite end. You're in the receiving end. No, you're not. You're no longer in the receiving end. You're the one giving it, right? It's a bit different. When you're learning physics, you don't really care about how the teacher is teaching, right? But when you're teaching physics, you have to be very careful on how you're going to on how you're planning out the activities or how you're planning out the flow of your lessons. It's quite a challenge, of course. It's because of course it's perceived as a difficult subject since it's a combination of science and math. But um my ultimate goal is, of course, physics is fun, and I'm trying to do my best every day.
Amazing answer. So, since we're on the topic of physics and science, I have to ask this. If you could time travel, what is one advice you could give to your younger self?
um don't drink and drive. I'm kidding. I think everything will get better. If you fail, just remember that it's the first attempt in learning, and I hope that my younger self continues to strive for the best. But I wouldn't really change anything. All of these things are all learning experiences for me and learning opportunities. So whatever my decision was before, I think it turned out fine. Although it was some of it were bad, it's a learning opportunity.
Amazing, amazing. Now, something on the side of your country. So, how is the research culture and what are the research opportunities in Philippines? Do you think that there's something lacking in comparison to Europe or American universities or Asian universities? So, what is your take on that?
In my personal opinion, I think I would start first with comparing the different universities, in European and American universities. I think there are three things that I would look into. First is, of course, your funding. In terms of funding, they're very generous about it. Second is the culture of research. I think they really love research, and with that, they have specific specializations compared here in the Philippines. If you want to really focus on a specific subject in physics, you cannot find that. But in America or in European countries, if you really want to talk to theoretical physicists or applied physicists, you can, and then they have a specialization for that. Um, and in terms of research culture, there is a research culture. However, it's particularly focused on the capital of the Philippines. I mean, in big universities in the Philippines. In terms of opportunities, since I have mentioned that there's a lack of support and funding, it's quite a competition to to really go out there and then uh, go study, because you're not really given that much of opportunity, even if you're a male, a female, or you have a very good research. If your background is not as good as their background because you're coming from a province in the Philippines, you wouldn't really get that. At the same time, since I've mentioned that my research, I think the focus of my research is more of in the academic side. There are a few of that focus on this matter, because most of the researches in the Philippines are more into pure sciences rather than in the curriculum, in how it should be done. And when you talk about research in the academic side, it takes a very long time. It's not like a 1 year process, a 2 year process, because you really have to gather all your data. So I think it's quite a challenge. That's why most of whom I know right now are actually trying to go abroad, because there are more opportunities there, even if it's expensive. But you're given more opportunities when you go abroad, and that's the reality.
Right, right. Extremely true. It indeed is the reality. Whenever you explore and go to other countries, there's a set of, world opens up to you, if I may. So now my last question to you would be that in the STEM industry, in the STEM courses that are there, there is a certain gender mismatch, right? That people have been trying to address. Europeans have been trying to address this, Americans have been trying to address this. So, what is your take on this? Do you think there can be done something to up the level of women or men in a particular field and make it a platform where all the genders together come and contribute to the STEM culture?
Yeah, I think it's still evident until now that STEM courses or STEM related jobs are more male dominated in the field, right? It basically, I think, if I'm not mistaken, it started in the society, but it started when we were kids, right? In the books in nursery or kindergarten and preschool, teachers would often show us pictures of different jobs, right? But so in these pictures, the often it's portrayed by male, right? So inculcated in their minds as young people, right? That to become a doctor you should be a male person, to become an engineer you should be a male person, because you can see pictures of them in suits, in lab coats. So it started when we were very young, that this gender bias came in, right? But it's unintentional because it's in the books, right? It's basically unintentional gender bias or unintended. But it's often perceived as programming and coding should be done by guys, while for nursing it should be done by female, and then female are often seen as support for this male. But I could say that um, you know through the years there had been changes, not specifically a great leap from what we have done before. I think an example of this, if you're familiar with the Girls Who Code, it's a non-profit organization. The Girls
Yeah,
Who
yeah,
Code,
yeah.
yeah, yeah, Girls Who Code, she's actually a founder and a CEO, is a woman. She noticed that the schools along her campaign lack girls in computer science classrooms. So she actually did this kickstart this project to encourage women to go into STEM field or coding, right? But for me, I think it basically starts within the classroom as a teacher. If we give equal opportunities to students who are interested in the field of STEM, this should be addressed. And as a teacher, you also have to understand their strengths and try to engage them if they really want to pursue something. Because in my case, in my personal case, there majority of my female students are doing good compared with my male students. So you can see that what if they you give them the best opportunity, they can actually strive for the best as well and do better when they go to the workplace. And speaking in my personal experience in terms of gender bias, I'm actually gay. I'm part of the LGBT organization, LGBT community, I mean. I think in my case, it wasn't really an issue. I was given equal opportunity in my job as well, even though I'm gay. This is my orientation. But since I'm speaking on behalf of experience as well, for my students, I would really want them to experience what I experience as well. That they could be given the same opportunity that I was given.
Amazing answer to that. I feel you've just motivated an entire generation. You've told something which was very imperative in the community, and especially in the STEM industry. And a wonderful quote you said in the middle, I'll just like to reiterate that it starts when you're young. It starts in the school, and that is where representation happens, which is what something, is unintentional, but sits in our heads and it's programmed us to see it that way. Women are for the support, men are there for the action, men are providers, women are takers. So that's kind of a mindset that has been built up, which needs to be addressed.